Hi, everyone. Just to get us all on the same page this morning, and I always like to try and build on what was said in the keynote. My dad said to me that the key to resilience is being able to deal with disappointment. Now, to tee me up for today, the Danish are apparently the happiest people in the world. And when researchers went out to Denmark to find out why, they said, we have the lowest expectations of anyone in the world. So, be Danish, bear with me, and hopefully by the end of this, I would have delivered beyond your expectations. We're going to be talking today about our design research. We do a big strategy piece each year in conjunction with our friends at REBA. And the way my weird brain works, I like to think about what's the model we should use to look at how we deliver great benefits and well-being. So I'm going to walk you through today not only the findings, but also that mental model that I hope you can all take away to evaluate what you're doing today. Is it good enough? Is it the right thing? And what do you potentially need to change? Also, I'm going to have to talk very quickly, because I delivered this to clients last week. They gave me an hour and 20 minutes to do it. Today, I now have 18 minutes and 40 seconds. So if I skip through anything, come to the stand, grab the research. That explains it all. So we're going to talk about a few things. Strategy. So what is benefit strategy? Do we really need one? What should we be trying to achieve? We'll then look at the influences. So over the last 3 years, what's actually been impacting the decisions that people like you have been making, because no doubt a lot of you responded to this. We'll then look at the actual responses that you've made. So where have you actually made changes to your programs in the last few years? And then whether or not it's had any results or impact. Is it actually working? And then you all kindly told us what you think you're going to be doing next. So hopefully, as I say, a good way for you to evaluate where you're at and what should you be doing. So first, benefit strategy. It all seems rather grandiose, doesn't it? At the end of the day, it's just pension, healthcare, and a few other things. Well, the way I always think about it, and I used to say this in a former life, that we should all think about running our benefits like we run our business, right? We're spending the company's money. That should have very given activity and very given outcomes that we're trying to achieve. And the first thing that I think we're all a little bit bad at in this space, if I'd admit it, and there are plenty of people who could challenge me, and a few friends in the room who I know are actually very good at this, but I think we're very, very bad at articulating what that aim or purpose is, and at a level of detail at which we could actually measure it and understand it. So the first thing I would say to all of you about this framework to think about is, what are you ultimately trying to achieve? Because then that can formulate the base of a strategy that says, okay, what action do we need to take? There's 3 big pillars of it for me that kind of overlap as per the diagram. Recruitment, right? From a talent and reward perspective, is it adding to the competitive and compellingness of why work for us, right? You invest in benefits, it should have some outcome that leads to better recruitment patterns and better retention patterns. Do you understand those? Can you measure them? Then when you've actually got the person in the door and it looks like they're going nowhere, what does the benefits and wellbeing program help you achieve from an engagement perspective? Does it improve utilization of the services, the initiatives, the tools, the products you offer? And does that drive satisfaction? Does it help me achieve my personal goals? And then finally, and this is one huge gap that's often either missed or not measured or understood properly, is productivity. I think for a long, long time we've thought about benefits purely through a reward lens, right? Does it make us competitive? Actually, if you go back to it, the amount we invest in our sick pay policies, our medical schemes, our income protection, OH, well-being, and other things should also be driving a level of business productivity, right? Am I putting my people in their best form to do their job brilliantly? And when something knocks them off course, how quickly can we return them to that position? But overall, whether you're a small or large employer, there's a degree to which I think you need to be able to know the answers to those 3 connected questions or aims. So with that in mind, we're going to talk about what's been happening in the world of benefits and well-being, according to all of you, as many of you responded to this, and what does it mean for your own programs? Well, firstly, there's been a huge amount going on, right? So if we look at the big influences that have been driving benefit strategy and change, in the past, down at the very bottom of the first chart there, a bit of an eye test, COVID. We all know that we had to respond to COVID with lots of well-being and health-style initiatives that may have been point solutions at the time, but have now kind of continued. They've bedded in, some of them work. I mean, that's very debatable. I don't have time to tell you how good and bad well-being is right now. We're all trying to do it. I don't know many of us are doing it particularly well. But COVID's not really on the radar anymore. What is a combination of 3 things. The cost of living crisis, wage inflation, and talent shortages. If you take the last two of those in conjunction, people are expecting to be paid more. And with the Great Resignation, COVID taught us that with remote working and hybrid working, we can easily find other jobs that are more convenient for us. There is huge pay pressure to get the right talent in a pool of limited talent. But then also with the cost of living crisis, people have other problems to fix as well. The point of that is for the next kind of couple of years at least, it still looks like the main driver of what we're going to do, and indeed it may well be the main limitation on what we can do from a benefits and well-being perspective, is what we're going to have to do from a pay perspective in order to either get or keep talent. On the other side of things then, we ask people, what are the top things internally within the organization that are impacting the decision-making that you've either made or you're going to make around your benefits program? Right at the top of the list, cost pressures. Now, that is a bit of a maelstrom, right? Because on the one side, we've got talent shortages and huge wage expectations. And sadly now, with the almost pseudo-recessionary environment that we're in, businesses are starting to cut back. We saw this first in the tech sector, tens of thousands of jobs gone, and now we're seeing it across other sectors that are quite fundamental to the economy, like property, construction, and what have you. So there's this really difficult balancing point. And what I think, or at least where I think it's left us from a benefits perspective, as you'll see in the stats, there's a huge number of us that made quite fundamental and strategic change in the last 3 years to better our benefits and wellbeing programs. And there's a small minority of us who didn't. Now that cost pressures are coming in, those who didn't, I think, are going to get left behind a little bit. And so I think we're in this kind of flux period. Maybe we've got the rest of 2023, maybe a little bit into 2024, where we need to work out where are the gaps, where are the blind sides, and do I need to fill them or not? I'm going to share a little bit of that as I race through this. So we know what all the pressures are. We know what's influencing your decision-making, but what action have you actually taken or planning to take? This is really fascinating because, again, it ties into our definition of talent, and it ties into our newfound sense in the last 2-3 years of inclusivity and fairness. All the money has gone into improving health and well-being and filling gaps for lower-grade employees. Now, that's critical for a couple of reasons. One, I think our definition of talent has shifted. We've kind of turned around and go, and I had a great example of this with a haulage business who's gone, we provide no benefits to them. We now can't get haulage people. We're at a standstill. Our business is not moving. Sure enough, they started investing in benefits as much as they started improving pay. We're filling gaps with people who don't have benefits, as opposed to going after the traditional talent of saying, let's give executives and bankers and others more. The other thing with it as well is we're still putting most of our money into well-being solutions and kind of health-related benefits, which is great, bar the fact I don't think anyone is doing that particularly well today. You know, I've got some clients with 40 different well-being solutions all dotted around, right? Platforms, resources, services, products, you name it. None of them are particularly well utilized, and none of them are well connected together. Our employees don't know how to use them, right? Through COVID, we jumped on things and we did things, but it's not come together in a cohesive way. So we're putting our money there, but back to our aims and objectives, I don't think it's delivering the results. And that's telling as we have a look at that. So we know, and going back to resilience, benefit programs have been super resilient over the last 3 years. Some stats that were on there that I didn't call out, very few of us have either not executed the initiatives we planned to, so executives didn't put a halt to things we tried to do, nor have we reduced benefits. So in the last 3 years, we've only seen new money go into a whole raft of different benefits and wellbeing solutions. That's great because, although I know how wonderfully young I look, having started my career in 2000 in this industry, I was seeing the back end of defined benefit plans closing and people rushing to give people minimum pensions. And then all of a sudden they realized there was no value in their benefits and started to do things like flex. Well, this is the first time we're seeing a lot of new money go into benefits in a generation, which I think is particularly good. However, this is where it leaves us, and this is, I think, a really good mental model way to look at your programs, as I have about 10 minutes left and about 35 slides left. So, there are 4 building blocks to any great benefits program. If I tell you anything today of use, I hope it's this. If you turn around and ask yourself the question, what do we need to change? It's only going to manifest in 4 areas, really. What you fund, what choice you provide, how well you communicate it, and how you utilize technology. Right? Everything else is noise. The actions you take is going to fall into a combination of those 4 boxes. What's fascinating is when we asked you, through this research, how good all of those things are, or where the burning needs are, basically, the design element of that, funding and choice, only 25% of the respondents said that's in urgent need of attention. So back to my point, in the last 3 years, we've filled gaps well, we've improved benefits for the underinsured, we've focused on well-being. Benefits design is broadly in a really good place. But then to the right-hand chart, you look at communications and technology in urgent need of attention. Now that's really important, and one of the key themes that I've called out from this year's research is moving from the kind of more strategic to the more tactical, and a really important reason why. If only 25% of us think that our benefits design needs to be fixed, but then 60% of us at least feel that things like communications need to be fixed, then where's the ROI going to come from? Because if you're not communicating the program well, employees don't value it, don't utilize it, don't appreciate it. So we need to move away from going, we've nailed design, we've filled gaps, programs looking competitive and compelling, to doing the tactical stuff. Great communication, better use of technology, and consolidation of all the different well-being solutions that we have. So it makes more sense for our people. But ultimately, it's fascinating. I think we're going to end up in a position where we've got those who've nailed on their design, and they just need to get it to their people. So the experience of benefits and well-being is better. The very few, according to this research, who are there and happy and think they're doing a great job. Some of them are here today. I won't name them, but if you find them, do a fantastic job with their programs. But then a large chunk of us who are going, actually, those 4 building blocks, I probably need to go back to basics and work out, if I've done nothing in the last 3 years, where are my priorities to fill those gaps? But it's quite fascinating. Design seems to be in a good place. Execution or employee experience, not so much. And that's quite interesting and telling in the results. So not only did we ask, what's influenced it? What have you done? Where does that leave your program? We then asked respondents, okay, how effective are you then? Are you having any success at all? What's been fascinating with this is a couple of things. The detail of the chart is irrelevant, but what you've got on the left-hand side of it is about 20% of you lot, 20% of our respondents, who said, actually, our program's in a great place. It's helping us achieve our well-being, our recruitment, our diversity, our engagement goals. That is very closely correlated to the 25% who said that our design is in a great place. Right? So when we kind of dig even deeper into the stats and try and find some correlations, effectively, these 12 tables or rows or group of people here, they're doing it great. We've then got 60% of you in the middle who are kind of saying so-so. You've definitely got things to fix. Hopefully it's not as fundamental as the design and the funding levels you're putting into it, but 60% going a bit meh. And we've got 20% of you over here in an urgent need of reviewing your programs, according to this. Completely ineffectual in their goals. Design hasn't been looked at. You've taken little activity or action in the last 3 years. Not single you out. I know your faces then dropped and like, me? Not literally you, just statistically approximately, right? 20% doing it great, so 1 in 5 of us. 20% of it doing very badly, and 3 in 5 of us kind of going, we're there or thereabouts, but there's things we need to do. And that's important because where are the plans for the future? Well, firstly, although choice is pretty nailed on, and I always talk about this when it comes to flex and personalization, all those terms that we use. Once you get on the flex or the choice merry-go-round, you never get off it. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but the expectation is that it has to stay fresh and relevant and has to evolve with people's expectations. So, although that came out as one of the top statistics, remember, people said that they were kind of happy with their choice. Even though we're happy with it, we know we constantly have to evolve and improve it. So if you're on that merry-go-round, don't stop, keep it fresh. From a funding perspective then, what's fascinating is all the focus for the next 2 years is still going to be in gap filling, right? So if you look at the 3 things I've highlighted there, filling gaps for lower grades, reducing waiting periods for benefits. I linked this back to talent earlier. There is a definite view amongst HR and reward professionals nowadays that talent is talent. If I brought you in from day 1, why are you waiting 1 or 2 years to get the full benefit program? Either be more confident in your talent decisions and say you get it from day 1, or have fundamental reasons why. For example, if you know you've got loads of churn in year 1, and that's just the nature of the industry, but once they're there a year, they stay with you, great. But generally speaking, a lot of people are removing waiting periods and what have you for benefits, because the view now is talent from day 1. So huge amount of funding gaps and design improvements still being made. What's interesting, very few people looking to do things like increase benefits with lengths of service. Let's face it, it's so archaic, it's dated, legislation fixed half of it, it didn't go the whole way. But again, moving to this position where more of our people get a full offer, irrespective of how long they've been here, how old they are, what grade they are, there's a lot more inclusivity and a lot more filling of gaps that's still going to be done in the next couple of years. So, I really have whizzed through that because we've got a few minutes left, which never happens to me. This is amazing. So, a few key things for us to focus on, and obviously there's far more depth in the actual research paper itself. But number one, what is the strategy and what should it be linking to? What are the elements of your business strategy and where are your people pressures where you know that you've honestly got gaps to fill or things to align your program to? There are many of you in the room I've talked about where the shift to digital and the competition for IT digital talent has meant that you've had to fundamentally rethink about your employee value proposition, for example. Or there's a restructuring of the business or a move to more digital transformation, in which case roles change and so on and so forth, right? There will be things that actually tangibly turn into different results in the benefits program. Another classic one in professional services, accountants, lawyers, bankers, etc. Okay, actually, we're really rubbish for our graduates and those joining the business. We don't have something compelling for them. And then they do a 2-year stint with us. They've got enough time on the CV to jump somewhere for a big, big pay rise. Again, we're not targeting that. So if you know that's a gap, that becomes a solution you have to fix. But bring it back to what are the business goals you're trying to achieve and where are the people pressures preventing you from doing so. The next thing, and again, I should know my audience, challenge me on this, go ask your people. The number of times I've been with clients recently, they turn around and go, we don't want to set false expectations with them. I'm like, then just pick the right words to use. But if you don't know what your people really want, and you don't know how you're going to solve their problems for them, that this is compelling, then it's just a stab in the dark, right? Everyone says, oh, it's good to be externally benchmarked. BS. It's not good to be externally benchmarked. It's good to know whether or not you're delivering against your people's problems. Right, I always say nowadays, there's two sides to this thing we call employee experience. Right? One side of it is making it easier for you to do your job really well. I'm not an expert in that. I'm not going to talk about that. The other side of it is, because of our size as a business rather than an individual, bringing to you things you can avail yourself of to solve your personal problems. Right? Go ask your people. Find out what problems you need to solve for them. We are very bad at it, sadly, I believe. Next thing, funding. Map out your benefits, see where you're at, and work out where your gaps are. Some of you have great programs. Some of you might have significantly changed them in the last few years. But I bet 60% in this room, you'd turn around and say, honestly, there's a gap or two somewhere. Right? And you've always struggled with that business case to say that lowest grade should get at least some form of healthcare. Or that lowest grade should get some form of better protection if they're long-term sick. Go hunt out your gaps, work out your plans to fill them. Choice, if you have it already, then again, what goal is it driving? Is it driving a satisfaction goal? Is it sorting people's problems? Keep it fresh. If you don't have it, then what's the business case for having it? Definitely, though, choice is still playing a fundamental role in great programs. And finally, employee experience. If you can sit there today and honestly say that your benefits program is competitive and compelling, then the number one thing that's going to let you down, if you don't think it's adding value to your EVP and your business, is how employees experience your benefits. And by the way, there's no point dealing with that before you've dealt with the design. So, if you need to do the more strategic, like, do we have a good offer? You have to nail that first. It's probably not an appropriate term anymore, but someone always says to me, you can't put lipstick on a pig. Right? Point being, you have to solve your design first, but if you're there, tick the box and can move on, you have to nail the employee experience, because those benefits, they don't promote themselves. They don't get magically utilized by people. They have to have the compelling reason to engage with them. So, that's it from me. 20 seconds left, new personal best. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.